This section will cover AtomSphere security. We have divided this module into different security concepts that includes password security, platform security, communication security, and finally, runtime security. As you are building out your process and thinking about your runtime environment, it is also important to think about where your data is stored and who has access to it. So the goal of this module is to enable you to confidently understand and explain Dell Boomi security concepts and techniques and choose an appropriate security strategy for an organization. We want to understand the security options available in AtomSphere and understand the security issues around different types of application platforms and connectors. It's obvious that protecting data, your processes, and access to endpoints is important for your business. We want to avoid downtime due to careless updates by users as well. You should always be thinking about security, but specifically in connectors, access to the platform, runtime security, meaning the Java process and Java machine, and understand how the Atom and the platform communicate. Let's do a quick review of some concepts and definitions. Platform security. All communication from the Atom to the data center uses TLS encryption. This is similar to SSL. These are cryptographic protocols that provide communication security over a computer network. Atom security. The Atom communicates information to AtomSphere in two modes. One, there is an ongoing and automatic communication, and two, there is user-initiated communications. During ongoing and automated communications, as we discussed earlier, it is sending status information, process configuration updates, and periodic checks for updates to the Atom code. User-initiated communications occur only upon the request of a user and include logging information about a specific integration process, capturing error messages and failures for diagnostic purposes, and retrieving connector schema to define mapping and rules for new integration processes. For communication security, all outbound communication from the Atom to data center is over HTTPS port 443. And if you're familiar with networking, you know that this port is used for secure web browser communication. Data transferred across such connections are highly resistant to eavesdropping and interception. The Boomi Atom uses a standard SSL handshake to authenticate with atom.boomi.com. Certificates. Many connectors use certificates to ensure security when transmitting data across a communication protocol. The certificate component can use an existing key obtained from a certificate authority like VeriSign or a key that's generated by Boomi. Authorization. Boomi grants admin users very granular control over the development environment. Administrators have the ability to provide access and permissions to folders, accounts, and roles. Permissions are simply access rights for a user or group. SSO stands for Single Sign-On, is an identity provider. This is an authentication service that permits a user to use one set of login credentials, for example, a username and password, to access multiple applications. Encryption is the process of encoding information so that only authorized parties can decrypt the data. We deal with several different authentication types. Basic authentication is simply username and password. OAuth is the open standard for authorization used to log into websites. And certificate-based authentication is an electronic document proving ownership of a public key. You have seen this slide before. It shows information and data movement between different systems and endpoints. It shows the communication of the Atom and platform, which is always initiated from the runtime. So we want to be sure to understand and utilize security during all these connections and integrations. Here is how password security works in Boomi. When your account is created, a public-private key pair is generated to encrypt all of your passwords when you are in the Build tab. When you log into your AtomSphere account with your username and password, you are accessing the key store for your account. The key store resides at the data center along with its secret key encrypted password. And when you connect to an application, in this example an FTP, you enter your username and password for that FTP. The data center then encrypts the FTP communication password using the account public key. So when you deploy a process, your password verifies access to the key store. The key store is downloaded and bundled with the process. And then during runtime, your private key is used to decrypt the password previously encrypted with a public key. It's important to understand the extended password that is set in the environment extensions, as we saw earlier, is not saved on the platform, but only exists on the local environment. So you can save dummy information in the process during the build and restrict access to the environments, and this will help you ensure security to your endpoints. All accounts are created with basic security, but there is advanced user security that can be added to an account. Users are defined by an email address. We strongly recommend an email that the user actually monitors and a single email address, not a group, because you will lose functionality of auditing and reviewing revision changes and deployments if a group uses the same login. Users can access more than one account, and users are assigned a pre-configured role with specific privileges, which do not include production support and support roles. We will look at this more in the next slide. When you enable advanced user security, you can assign production support and support roles to users and create custom roles as well. These custom roles can be based upon existing roles or can be totally customized. These are the 4 default security roles in advanced security: administrator, standard user, production support, and support. I'm not going to go over each privilege. You can find them in the User Management tab. With the Enterprise Edition licenses, you can also create custom roles where you specify the privileges. Within environment security, we can define which roles have access to which environments. The default is that environments are open or unrestricted. This is done in Atom Management. Audit logs capture changes in the platform and can be queried as part of the Atomsphere API. The only place the audit log is available in the platform UI is in Environment Extensions. For more information, visit the user guide and search audit log. Through the user interface, administrators and those with the privilege can see who has changed extensions. There is also an audit log object accessible through the Atomsphere API where you can track the changes listed here by the user's email address. This is why it's important for each user to have a separate login, and you can share an account for development and everything, but should not share logins. Many companies make use of single sign-on or SSO. Instead of relying on Atomsphere to authenticate users for your organization, you can choose to use an external identity provider. And then through that provider, you grant access to Atomsphere and the user does not need to log into Atomsphere directly. We have divided SSO into Identity Provider Initiated and Service Provider Initiated. The difference being with Identity Provider Initiated, you may log into your organization to verify credentials and be directed to the Atomsphere platform, where with the Service Provider Initiated, you will navigate to the Atomsphere platform and be redirected to your organization authentication and then redirected back to the platform. SSO is only enabled with the Advanced User Security module. Ensure that one user is a Boomi administrator role so they can bypass SSO if there is ever a problem with your identity provider. That user then can manage the other SSO users. Also know that the Atomsphere API queries Atomsphere directly, and as of now, the API users need to be able to bypass SSO as an administrator. Some common identity providers are Okta and Active Directory. Dell Boomi is providing the Atomsphere service, so in this scenario, we are a service provider. I covered the differences in the last slide for Identity Provider Initiated and Service Provider Initiated. If you use SSO for other applications in your organization, I recommend using it for Boomi as well. Users need to be configured in Atomsphere User Management with their Federation ID. Just because a particular user has an account with an LDAP or Active Directory does not mean that they will have access to Atomsphere. you have to enter the user and federation ID into Atomsphere. Password rules are validated against the account you are accessing. However, when you have to change your password, the password rules are enforced across all accounts that you have access to. Passwords must be 6 characters, but you can change that and make it more. They cannot be repeating characters or common passwords. You just need to be smart about this. Password policies can be changed if your account requires. Folder security allows you to assign roles to specific folders, so only users in those roles have write access. Non-administrator users can view the folder permissions.